days leading to the meeting to decide Rick's fate inside the walls of Alexandria are tense. Rick struggles to adapt to a regular way of life as his journey has led him to act in ways that could be seen as hostile to the Alexandrians. Merely weeks since their arrival, Rick has caused chaos inside the walls of Alexandria. Through deception and manipulation, he has shown he has no time for the weak residents of the gated community, and the time to atone for it has come. The meeting had turned sour as a man named Pete Anderson, Alexandria's only surgeon, stormed the gathering in search of revenge on Rick from separating him from his family upon his appointments as Alexandria's constable. Rick in the situation was in the right, as Pete was beating both his kids and his wife Jessie. Alexandria's co-leader Reg attempts to stop Pete from doing something he may regret, but Pete's anger pushes him into a relentless rage, accidentally cutting open Reg's neck in front of the Alexandrian residents. Abraham tackles Pete, and Alexandria's now sole leader Deanna orders Rick to put Pete down.
Do it.
And as Rick looks up from Pete's cold corpse, he sees Morgan arriving at Alexandria after 2 years of absence. Along his journey to find Rick, Morgan encountered a strange group of people with W's carved into their foreheads. He comes to learn they believe humans descended from wolves and have embraced this lifestyle. The wolves attack, and Morgan easily knocks them out and leaves them alive before going on with his day until encountering Daryl and heading back to Alexandria with them. But the wolves locate the safe zone and show us they aren't looking for roommates. Now, Rick has just murdered a man in cold blood in front of all the citizens of Alexandria and gone away with it, leading Rick to feel rather confident going forward. The next morning, Alexandria grieves the death of Reg and, to a lesser extent, Pete. As some Alexandrians dig graves for the two, Rick demands Pete be moved outside the wall and buried as he elects to deny Pete a funeral out of spite. While this isn't a good look for Rick to the Alexandrians after the chaos that happened, it acts as a good first step in showing these people the realities of the new world and what happens to those who don't follow the rules. Rick's rules. Morgan agrees to accompany Rick in taking Pete's body out, as it is some value time the two could use to get to know each other all over again. Before leaving, Daryl speaks to Rick on the importance of continuing to look for new people outside the walls, but Officer Friendly has gone cold and believes the time of recruiting is over, and it is time to hunker down and protect what they already have. Morgan can see Rick has changed drastically from the last time he's seen him, but Morgan has changed as well, adopting an all life is precious mentality after being brought back from the brink of insanity by an Aikido teacher named Eastman. He teaches him the ways of peace and prosperity before losing his life to a walker and passing his lifestyle on to a now clear-minded Morgan. The two reach the spot where they were going to bury Pete, but cold-blooded Rick Grimes tells Morgan to just leave the body there and not waste the energy burying a killer. As Morgan continues digging, Rick hears some strange noises in the distance. As the two investigate, they come across the largest horde of walkers either of them have seen to date, trapped within a quarry. They are in shock at the sheer size of it, but are interrupted by the deceased Pete's son, Ron, who snuck out of the walls to see where his dad was buried. He is chased by walkers nearly right off the cliff, where he is saved by Rick, the man he's come to hate for putting his father down like a dog. Rick scolds him before looking back over the quarry, surveying for weak spots. You see, Alexandria had survived this long because of the quarry. At the beginning of the outbreak, miners had blocked the way out with large trucks, trapping the walkers inside. Over time, more and more would wander in, and as the horde grew, so did the noise, attracting even more as the years would go by. And eventually, the trucks would begin to shift, threatening to unleash the horde onto Alexandria. Rick and Morgan take this shocking revelation back home, where they begin to devise a plan to direct the horde away. A man named Carter acts as the voice of the Alexandrians, showing great doubt in Rick's plan and Rick himself. Alexandria's leader, Deanna, ultimately sides with Rick's plan, overruling Carter, and the community gets to work. Step 1 is to build up walls to divert the horde in the opposite direction. Here Rick takes charge, ordering the Alexandrian volunteers to kill approaching walkers, and they fail horribly. It's apparent that these people have a lot to learn, but Carol encourages Rick to take them on and teach them the way of survival. Step 2 of the plan has separate divisions split off and clear the path ahead for the Horde to pass through. This includes taking out stragglers and clearing buildings. And the final step has Daryl, Abraham, and Sasha lead the Horde in vehicles over 40 miles out before dumping them and heading home. It was the perfect plan. That is, until a dry run turns into the real deal. Everyone panics as the Horde begins to push out. Rick commands everyone to get to their posts. The plan is happening right here, right now. Glenn, Heath, and Nicholas sprint down the road, killing stray walkers along the way. Daryl hops on his motorbike, getting the herd in order, as Abe and Sasha join in separate vehicles. As Rick, Michonne, and Morgan push on to their outpost at the recently built fence, Glenn's group arrives at the gas station and begin to take out walkers. Nicholas asks to help but is denied by Glenn, as he deems them too unstable to be fighting walkers, but does so anyway, proving his value to Glenn. The Horde arrives at the fence, where countless walkers begin viciously slamming into it. Rick and co fire flares to direct the Horde away, and to their surprise, the fence holds, diverting the Horde away from Alexandria's path. Everything is going according to plan as Rick and the Alexandrians reconvene on the outside. Carter shakes Rick's hand, apologizing for doubting him. And then he fucking dies. Carter screams threaten to divert the Horde, but he puts him down in time. Right before an even louder sound is heard in the distance, coming directly from home. The sun shines bright over a beautiful day at Alexandria. As most of the fighters of the community head off to perform a dry run on the Horde plan, the rest stay back and live their lives normally, as there is no reason to think the plan will fail. Carol continues to act as a housewife among the Alexandrians, giving recipes and advice to her new friends. Her positive influence even convinces a woman to quit smoking inside her house, and everything is starting to look up for her. Within seconds, Alexandria becomes a slaughterhouse. Morgan's wolf friends finally decided to strike on the community at the most opportune time possible. Left and right, the Alexandrians are cut down. Carol knows she has no choice but to embrace the beast within her, and disguises herself as one of the attackers, going on the offensive. Pete's wife Jessie shows she is more than just a beaten down mom, as she rises up to defend her kids against the invaders. As the wolves retreat from the powerhouse that is Carol, Morgan catches them and elects to let them live and leave in peace. This proves to be a mistake, as their final FU on the way out is to ram a truck through Alexandria's gates. Deanna's son Spencer finally does something and kills the driver. This isn't enough to stop the truck, however, as it then barrels into the watchtower outside the gate, setting off what is revealed to be the loud sound, causing half the Horde to march directly to Alexandria's walls. Back at the Horde, Alexandrians are panicking as Rick tries to calm them down. Rick agrees to make a run for the RV to lead half the Horde away, while everyone else takes the longer but safer way to get back home. As Rick sprints for his life, he comes across the RV and begins to lead the Horde, before stopping to let them catch up. As he radios in with Daryl, the wolves Morgan let free are seen surrounding Rick in the vehicle. Ricky Dicky Doodah Grimes isn't officer friendly anymore, however, and has a new way of handling things.
Yeah, baby! That's what I've been waiting for!
The fuel tank is punctured by a bullet, and Rick is off running for Alexandria once again. Back with the others, panic takes over as the Alexandrians begin dropping one by one, being consumed by the Horde. Nicholas and Glenn get separated as Nicholas begins to panic. The two are stranded on top of a dumpster before Nicholas decides this world is too much for him.
Thank you.
Glenn is taken down with Nicholas's limp body as the Horde piles on top of them. Michonne, Heath, and Scott are the only survivors to make it back to Alexandria before Rick arrives, with the Horde on his tail. Anyone unaccounted for on the outside of the walls is to be assumed dead, as Alexandria is surrounded.
As the Horde piles in, 20 walkers deep on every side, Rick does what he does best and leads, calming the people down and urging them to remain quiet, as with time the Horde will pass. Life surrounded by the undead isn't easy. Some people raid pantries, many panic, and some break out into vicious rages.
This sucks, man.
But through the panic, Jesse rises up to be the one to hold the Alexandrians together. When first arriving to Alexandria, Rick took a liking to Jesse and became hyper-invested in her life as a married woman when he realized what Pete was up to behind the scenes. If it isn't obvious, Rick has come full circle and completed his transformation into Shane, killing another man to steal his wife. You would think Jessie would want nothing to do with Rick after this, just like her kids. But she accepts Rick's reasoning for everything that happened, and the two embrace each other.
Skip. But when does this game get fucking good?
The dead are buried, and Diana struggles with her failure of leadership, believing Rick to be the man to lead the Alexandrians through this crisis. Alexandria's only medically trained resident, Denise, has been given the responsibility of the entire community's health, and struggles to hold herself together as Morgan knocks on the door. With urgency in his eyes, he asks Denise to follow him, as there is somebody in his care in need of medical attention. Here he reveals to Denise, the leader of the wolves, who was captured by Morgan and taken prisoner. Denise expresses to Morgan her uneasiness of helping him, but he pleads with her, projecting his all life is precious mentality onto her. Denise agrees to help and keep it a secret, but lets Morgan know how bad of an idea this is. Maggie panics as Glenn never returned from the Horde mission. She goes to Aaron for help getting outside the wall to find him, where he escorts her through the sewers beneath Alexandria. This proves to be frivolous as all exits are blocked. Here Maggie opens up to Aaron, revealing herself to be pregnant with Glenn's child. Now we last left off with Glenn at the dumpster, where the Horde viciously piled on top of himself and Nicholas's body. Here we see the vigilante thinking of Glenn shine through as he pulls himself under the dumpster to safety. An entire day goes by before the Horde clears out of the alley, and Glenn is alive to see another day. For now, that is.
Back to it.
Inside the wall, Rick and Carl teach Jesse's son Ron to shoot a gun. Ron shows animosity towards the two, even when they're trying to help, showing Ron has some deep-rooted anger brewing inside him. They are interrupted by Spencer, attempting to scale a rope over the Horde and failing as usual. Rick is forced to rescue him, putting others in danger and bringing the Horde's attention back to the unstable walls. Rick scolds Spencer for the stupid move.
Are you fucking dumb?
Now Jesse's other son, Sam, has been scared shitless of the walkers ever since Carol traumatized him with her story.
And they will tear you apart and eat you up all while you're still alive.
Since the arrival of the Horde, Sam refuses to eat, sleep, or even come down from his room, showing how much of a liability he could become if the worst were to happen. Some of the Alexandrians begin stabilizing the damaged wall, and Rick, as a show of unity, joins them. Gabriel holds a prayer circle. Maggie plans for the future. Things are starting to look up for Alexandria, until a deep cracking is heard, and the tower begins to fall.
As the wall comes crumbling down, all hell breaks loose as the Horde begins to pour inside Alexandria. The community scrambles to get away. Deanna stands her ground before getting trampled onto a sharp blade. Rick comes to her rescue as they fight to get away. Maggie has the closest call so far on her journey, but makes it to safety, as Eugene, Rosita, and Tara hide out in a garage. Rick fights to keep Deanna alive, as he's joined by a group of his closest allies. Jesse clears a path for them to take shelter in her house, and our survivors finally reach safety. For now. Alexandria is filled to the brim with the dead, and hope is fading fast, as Rick discovers Deanna has been bitten.
Well.
Carol takes shelter unknowingly in the same building as Morgan, Denise, and the wolf prisoner. Carol demands Morgan step aside as she believes the wolf needs to be put down, but Morgan stands his ground. The two fight, knocking each other out and leaving the wolf to take Denise prisoner and exit into the Horde. The energy is tense inside Jesse's house as Sam shuts down out of fear. Deanna lies bleeding out on the bed, and Ron corners Carl, threatening him. Carl doesn't address this to his dad as he believes there are more pressing issues at hand, but he sure as hell is gonna wish he did. Time is starting to run out as Deanna can feel the end approaching. The house is starting to give, and the group needs to think of a plan fast. Say it with me now. They bust out the good old guts trick. The new plan is to sneak through the Horde outside the walls, and use the vehicles to lead the Horde away. Sam is traumatized at the thought of walking with the dead, but understands there is no other choice. Deanna says her final goodbyes to the group, officially passing leadership of Alexandria down to Rick. Our survivors exit into the great unknown, as Deanna has her final stand. The Horde is thick. Our survivors hold hands, trying not to get lost in the sea of the dead. Jesse, Ron, and Sam have never been through anything like this before, so the risk of bringing them is high. The plan proves to be harder than expected as the Horde is too thick for all of them to squeeze through, with the baby unnoticed. Gabriel volunteers to take Judith somewhere safe, solidifying his loyalty to Rick. The group continues on, looking for a way through. Now, on the outside of Alexandria, Daryl, Sasha, and Abraham finish their mission of steering their half of the Horde and set off back home, acquiring a much-needed fuel truck on their journey. While traveling back, they are stopped by a gang in the road who demand they hand over all their stuff. When they refuse, Abraham and Sasha are held at gunpoint as Daryl is taken to show the thugs what they have. But this is Daryl Dixon. He won't ever let someone manhandle him like that. He overpowers the thug and uses a previously found RPG to end the gang right then and there. The group carries on back home, but little do they know this encounter will have grave consequences down the road. But that's a story for another day. Night falls and our survivors have been walking amongst the Horde for hours. Sam has been strong throughout the crisis, but begins to freeze up when he sees a child walker. Panic sets in as Sam breaks out in tears, bringing attention to the survivors, and in seconds, Sam is overrun by the dead. Jesse completely loses it, shutting down and letting the walkers tear her apart. Rick is forced to cut her hand off to save Carl. And all this goes down right in front of Ron, who directly blames Rick for what just went down. At gunpoint, Rick and Carl stand in fear before Michonne strikes, taking down Ron and feeding him to the Horde. However, as Ron goes down, he fires off a stray shot, and where that bullet hits will change our survivors forever. Carl falls as a chunk of his head is taken out by the stray bullet. Rick and Michonne fight for Carl's life through the Horde, attempting to reach Denise at the infirmary. But Denise, of course, isn't at the infirmary. The wolf holds her at gunpoint as the time comes for the two to move safely. But of course, the wolf gets bit. Denise is swarmed by walkers, but is saved by the now dying wolf. Maybe it was adrenaline, maybe it was fear, but the wolf selflessly saved Denise, and it doesn't go unnoticed. Denise vows to save the wolf's life by amputation if he gets her to the infirmary, and he does just that, right before getting gunned down by Carol, who always gets what she wants. Denise makes it to the infirmary just in time to begin working on Carl as Rick and Michonne fought their way through the Horde. Rick wants to shut down. He wants to lie down and give up. But the rage inside him, born from Shane, the Governor, and Terminus, ignites. And the beast is unleashed. Rick's final stand inspires the cowering Alexandrians to rise up and stand by Rick's side. One by one, body by body, the walkers drop. Finally arriving from their journey and picking Glenn up along the way, Abe, Sasha, and Daryl fight their way through the Horde and unleash the fuel truck into Alexandria's pond, igniting it and luring a large section of the Horde into their watery graves. Rick and the Alexandrians can see the light at the end of the tunnel and give one final hard push, killing the Horde by hand. The sun shines onto Alexandria once again as our survivors stand amongst the bodies. The Alexandrians have proven to Rick they are capable of survival and shown him, with enough hands, the dead are a manageable threat. Rick sits at Carl's bedside as he recovers from the gunshot wound and confesses he wants to rebuild the world better and stronger than what came before.
I want to make it a reality for you.
No Way Out does a lot of things for the overall story. Glenn being separated from Maggie reinforces their love for each other, as well as the audience, albeit in kind of a scummy way. Rick assimilates the Alexandrians into his family after their stand against the Horde. This leads Rick to having extreme confidence in fulfilling his promise to Carl, which of course will lead him to the worst day of his life. We have a time jump immediately the next episode, so the direct aftermath is unseen, but what we do see is Rick does not give a single fuck about Jessie. He never really brings her up ever again, and immediately moves on to Michonne, which honestly is a better match anyway, but it's still kinda weird. The purpose of the arc is pretty much the same as in the comics, but the only lasting change is Carl, which of course in the TV show, Carl dies. His eye wound has lasting effects into the Whisperer arc and the way he feels about himself. And that's kind of just lost in the TV show, as Carl doesn't really have much to do over the next couple seasons, and they only really touch on how he feels about his eye a couple times. The No Way Out arc ends on a more positive note than most, and we see the show shift more into being about rebuilding the world instead of just surviving in it. And Rick gets to work on this promise immediately, leading directly into the next arc. Thank you so much once again for watching. The overwhelming support has been absolutely incredible. It seems like the most requested explained video is the Governor, so keep an eye out for that in the future. Thanks for watching, folks.